I would like to hand over the session to the chair. Chair Dr. Sampa Kundu.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank Nice Nepal for giving us this wonderful opportunity to moderate the session on India's e-diplomacy. Without wasting much time, I will first introduce the session and why we are conducting this particular session. I believe that in the last 2 years, uh, e-diplomacy has become the key word in India's foreign policy. Of course, the reasons are known to us. COVID-19 um, has put so many restrictions on face-to-face and traditional type of diplomacy that there was no other option but to resort to e-diplomacy. Thankfully, now we are overcoming some of the challenges um, given to us by this, disaster COVID-19 pandemic, and now we are looking at an era where we are saying that hybrid diplomacy or blended diplomacy has become very important. But having said that, I personally believe that, and there are plenty of examples to, kind of substantiate this argument that uh, India will continue to follow the path of blended diplomacy or hybrid diplomacy because face-to-face diplomacy or the so-called traditional diplomacy has many limitations which can be overcome if we can actually successfully implement hybrid diplomacy. But there are still many bottlenecks to overcome if we have to implement hybrid diplomacy successfully. I was reading a paper, a report basically, which was published by the United Nations Secretary General high level panel in the year 2019, and this report was actually talking about e-diplomacy. And there are few questions that I came across while I was reading the report. The first question is whether we are ready to accept the changes that will come with the adoption of this new kind of new technologies in foreign policy and diplomacy. So how we can build an inclusive digital economy and an inclusive digital society. That is very important. The second question is whether we have the human and the capacity to implement digital diplomacy, to implement hybrid diplomacy. So human capacity, resource building is very important. The third question is, since we are talking about the cyber aspect of diplomacy, so the question is whether we are also ready to maintain the security. So the questions like individual protection, encryption, etc., are also very important, and we need to address those challenges and issues. The last question is if the world is moving towards uh, digital diplomacy, then India also should follow the same footsteps. Because if India wants to be a great power, if India wants to be a responsible power in the Indo-Pacific region and in the world, then we have to have the system in place where we can successfully apply various modes of hybrid diplomacy. So with that small introduction, I will now invite the panelists who will be talking about various aspects of digital diplomacy as far as India's foreign policy is concerned. So our first speaker today is Ms. Smriti. She is a PhD scholar and she's a scholar at Amity University, Noida, India. And her paper is themed on understanding India's e-diplomacy with the United Nations. So Smriti, if you're ready, please start your presentation.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'm just sharing my screen with you.
Good afternoon.
Is my screen is visible now?
Yes. Before you start, I just would like to tell you that all the speakers have roughly 7 to 8 minutes,
Sure, ma'am.
and you have to wrap up your presentation within that time.
Sure,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Sure, ma'am. First of all, good evening to the chair, Dr. Shampa Kundu ma'am, all the delegates from the NICE, participants and presenters. Myself, Smriti Singh Chauhan, and I'm presenting on understanding India's e-diplomacy with the United Nations. More than ever before in human history, we share a common destiny. We can master it only if we face it together, said by Kofi Annan in December 1999. And I think this quote is more relevant in the current scenario than ever. The pandemic has proved the crucial role of United Nations and its agencies in the effective multilateralism world order to achieve the inclusive and equitable solution to the global challenges. The United Nations has been constantly a great platform for India to present its foreign policy and to create its impact over the global political scenario. The sensitive international system has been providing a new opportunities to India to prove itself as a global leader, and United Nations is one of the most suitable podium for India to present itself as itself to a new post-COVID world. As a rising soft power, India has always believed in multilateral platforms. India's encouraged engagements with United Nations are evidence of India's focus on multilateralism. India has also shown the world the path towards effective e-diplomacy by hosting, arranging, and participating in multiple numbers of virtual meetings and summits at the bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral levels. Through all these efforts, India's focus on multilateralism and UN has been retreated time and again. If we talk about the Indian foreign policy and geopolitics, the foreign policy is those general objectives that guide the activities and relationship of one state and its interaction with the other states. Foreign policy is a sum total of national interest, principles, and objectives which a state wants to attain and promote while interacting with the other state. The major objectives are which influence the Indian foreign policy is the promotion of international peace and security, friendly relationship with the other countries, respect for the international law and international organizations like the UN, and finally, the peaceful settlement of any international dispute. India strives to remain a relevant and impacting force on issues ranging from the climate, sustainability to the fair trade, emerging technologies, space, cyber crimes, with the multilateral platforms like United Nations. The post-COVID world has presented a bunch of challenges and opportunities at the same time for Indian foreign policy also. If we talk about the international politics, which is changing just by the year of 2020 due to the pandemic, in the recent decades, in a lot of many factors has been contributed into the change of geopolitical scenario worldwide. If we start talking about the major one is the decoupling of US-China technology sector was already disrupting the bilateral flows between related to technology and investment between these two countries and impacting the world international scenario. The change of the leadership in India as a Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is also one of the important aspects. Change in the behavior of European Union in terms of they are becoming more assertive towards the rules and enforcement, which we have seen in the recent past also. And if we just talk about the recent development, which is the US policy in terms of Shia-led nations, and we have recently seen the Afghanistan scenario, it is creating an impact over the geopolitical, and the COVID-19 pandemic act as a new revolution to the world in the terms of geopolitical scenario. This pandemic craved out some very significant characteristics of a world order. First, the weakness of global health governance, and secondly, borders are more blurred in the today's competitive world than ever. If we talk about the e-diplomacy, the crisis of COVID-19 has changed all the aspects of life. Even it's created a huge changes in the term of international relations and for diplomacy. Modern diplomacy is currently going through several fundamental changes, as our chair has mentioned in the introduction. The digitalization of diplomacy affects the working of diplomats and changing some foremost aspect of a foreign policy also. Today, digital diplomacy has become inevitable, and it has not replaced the traditional diplomacy completely, but it is very well supplemented and and complemented it. Digital diplomacy is a hybrid and even able to break the limitation of traditional diplomacy. E-diplomacy is the use of technology by the nations to define and establish the diplomatic goals and objectives and to efficiently carry out the functions of the diplomats. And now the e-diplomacy public is more informed and sensitive about the foreign policy issues on the certain social media platforms provide a lot of information, and the two-way communication is there. And the diplomacy has gone strongly digital in the COVID-19 pandemic time period. The India has been at the forefront of digital diplomacy, and India has initiated and started a global conversation on different virtual platforms. Diplomacy also adapted a new situation and strongly taken an e-diplomacy on a welcome ground. If we just talk about the relationship of India and UN, India always worked through the multilateral forums for the creation of a more equitable international economic and political orders. And India has also supported the principle of United Nations, and India has always significantly contributed to the implement of UN goals, charters, and to complete the purpose of the UN agencies and programs. India always viewed a UN as a strong platform for peace and peaceful changes in international politics. India has a firm belief that the UN and its norms of international relations are the most efficacious means of handling today's world and issues and challenges. At the virtual session of 73rd World Health Assembly in May 2020, at the time of pandemic, India, along with the over 60 countries, co-sponsored the resolution on the COVID-19 pandemic. And in April 2021, when India was battling with the second wave of COVID-19, different agencies of UN had provided the great support to overcome the grave situation and reciprocated the relationship. If we talk about the India's health diplomacy, during the COVID-19, India's quest as a responsible power has come up, and COVID-19 given a new dimension to the health diplomacy also worldwide. If you all remember from the last year, the situation when we have a ban over the certain medicines, and United States and Brazil, we start providing those medicines, the hydrochloric and the paracetamol, which is there. And we exported nearly 446 million of HQC tablets and a 1.54 billion of paracetamol tablets to the 133 countries. India's medical diplomacy has appreciated by the World Health Organization and United Nations also. And if we just talk about the COVID-19 pandemic has given a new dimension to the health policy worldwide. And India's vaccine Maitri, which is the name given to the India's vaccine policy, is also there. We provided a vaccine to the many countries in the South Asian region on as a grant basis, as a aid basis also. And we are driving the the largest vaccine drive in India itself. Vaccine diplomacy tried to show the most generous and human attitude of India towards the international community. If I further talk about that, how the new opportunities for the India as a global leader arise due to this diplomacy and the pandemic situation, the COVID-19 pandemic has subsequently altered the global economic order, and the geopolitical change in the world scenario due to the COVID-19 pandemic has provided a great opportunity for India as a emerge as a global leader. The emerging role of India as a global leader in different sectors, and there are a good number of factors that are supporting the good positioning of India as a global leader in sustainable world. And based on the competitiveness index, India is the most competitive country in the South Asian region. India has a competitive advantage in the services, including the information technology, services, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and medical tourism sector. If we talk about what are the factors which are there, which supporting the upcoming role of India as a global leader. First, the reliability crisis with the China. We all know that in the beginning, the China has not chosen the non-transparent approach towards providing information related to COVID-19 crisis, and it has created a mild doubt against the reliability of China worldwide. And in the future, investors definitely consider this thing, and India can be the first choice for many investors as it created its own goodwill in the time of pandemic through the e-diplomacy and vaccine diplomacy. We also have the potential of growth. India has a massive potential in the terms of workforce. the young population, which is better English speaking, and we are providing a different reforms and creating a massive economic growth situation for the investors. Then if we just talk about the young population and social diversity, India's biggest advantage today is a 600 million in a young population, which was one of the biggest strength of Chinese economy in 1980 and 90s. So for the substantial growth, and India also had a third largest in the entrepreneurs base and ecosystem for startups. India's socially diversified demography and multiculturalism give a base for successful and diplomatic partnership across the world. We can also count on the strong leadership of Mr. Narendra Modi, who's coming up with the visionary approach and innovation in the diplomacy, tried a new dimension, international relations, and achieved a respectable level of goodwill in the worldwide. The certain domestic changes also after pandemic, India has bracing up to bring the economy under the control and playing a major role in the rebuilding the world economy too. And different initiatives by the Indian government on the domestic front. You all must have heard about the Make in India initiative, and there's a lot of land reforms, labor reforms, and even the one window approach for the FDIs and opening up a new startups is also there. And one more thing which was added as an India as a non-permanent member in the UN Security Council in January 2021, and it will stay on the council for 2 years, and the role of India in a Security Council becomes very important due to the power tussle between the US, China, and now the Afghanistan situation. So we can, all these are the factors which can provide a base to the India as a global leader. So I just want to conclude my, we have a certain challenges, but in the terms of economy, in the terms of GDP, but still we can hope for the, India coming as a global leader. So I just conclude my presentation here. India's foreign policy appears to achieve a stronger relationship with the countries by using the multilateral platforms like UN, and that can assist in achieving the higher rates of economic growth to India. And Indian foreign policy also focusing on capacity to prove its presence in the Asian and South Asian region. We have actually, the COVID-19 pandemic has been used as an opportunity by India to prove itself as an emerging global power. Our e-diplomacy, vaccine diplomacy has gone beyond just merely a soft power projection, and we are more serious about pursuing it. And India's hopes to diplomatically reach a new heights near, even with the irritant neighboring countries by generous exhibiting its pivotal role in the global vaccine supply chain. And with the e-diplomacy and hybrid diplomacy, we are hoping for the better future. Thank you very much. I hope I'm able to sum up my presentation in time now.
Yes, thank you, Smriti. You have wonderfully described about the capabilities that India already has in order to, implement various modes of digital diplomacy. So we saw your presentation, the slides were visible, but we couldn't see you, but never mind.
I'm really sorry, ma'am, for that.
Okay.
I think I forget to open my camera.
Yeah. Okay, so I will go to the next speaker now, Ankit Kumar. Ankit Kumar is also a PhD scholar at Amity Institute of Social Sciences. Ankit is working on India-Sri Lanka relations. Today, Ankit will be talking about India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region. So I believe that will be a very interesting topic for our discussion. Ankit, if you can start your presentation, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, Ankit, please start.
Good afternoon, one and all. Heartfelt gratitude, dear participants and panelists. A warm welcome. Myself, Ankit Kumar, PhD research scholar from Amity University, Noida. It's honor and privilege to participate and present a paper on India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region in such a nice platform. So the title of my presentation is India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region. Abstract. This paper elucidates India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region, the growing significance of the Indian Ocean in the international politics, and the transformation in India's diplomatic stance in the region. The factor that insists India for its proactive engagement in the Indian Ocean region, it also examines at huge length the most recent innovation in India's diplomatic stance in Indian Ocean region, which is e-diplomacy. How India make use of e-diplomacy, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic, in conducting its relation with the littoral states in the region. What all benefits and advantages of e-diplomacy for India? The adoption of e-diplomacy by India in its foreign policy credential in the Indian Ocean region has significant role in reinforcing the image of India as a benign power in the region and achieving its foreign policy pursuits in the region. Technology has revolutionized the existence of human beings on the earth and also the conduct of foreign policy of the state as well. Foreign policy of state involves a set of techniques which it implies to achieve its desirable objective. The most frequently used technique to conduct foreign relation and to achieve the endeavor of national interest is diplomacy. These techniques of conducting foreign policy had underwent significant changes since from the past few centuries. The most recent, most important invention in the techniques of conducting foreign policy is the invention of e-diplomacy. E-diplomacy can be defined as a technique of conducting foreign relations whereby state makes use of internet to achieve its pursuit of national interest. The evolution of e-diplomacy can be traced back to mid-19th century with the invention of telegraphs. The arrival of internet within the diplomatic domain in the beginning of 21st century has revolutionized the process of conducting foreign relations, not only by helping states to conduct negotiation on various issues simultaneously, but also have its wider impact as well. The increased role of e-diplomacy in the diplomatic practices can be evident from the fact that all major powers start embracing it. USA, in fact, created a dedicated e-diplomacy unit as well. India also showed its inclination toward the e-diplomacy and it became official in 2010 when Ministry of External Affairs for the first time posted on the Twitter. It was followed by highlighting various foreign policy issues through Twitter and other social media tools as well. India make effective use of e-diplomacy in conducting its relation with all major power and country in the region as well. India and the Indian Ocean region. India, after its independence, was less inclined toward Indian Ocean region, but Indian policymakers were not totally ignorant of Indian Ocean region. As former Indian Prime Minister Nehru in March 1958 held that whichever power controls the Indian Ocean has India's seaborne trade at its mercy apart from its independence. India's less inclination toward its Indian Ocean after independence was mainly due to its import substitution economic model, more security threats from continent rather than from ocean, Cold War constraints. Indian policymakers started paying heed to its Indian Ocean in 1970, but a clear visible shift towards it became apparent after 1990. The main factor responsible for this shift includes economic reforms of 1991, transformation in the world order. India now started extending its tie with other nations as well. For instance, India and USA conducted joint naval exercise, Malabar in 1992. Besides this, India also entered into various bilateral naval exercises with UK and Russia as well. It shows a clear shift in inclination towards its Indian Ocean region. The significance of India in the Indian Ocean region lies due to its strategic location in the South Asia. India, being a center of South Asia, has its reach over all major sea and air routes in the region. While highlighting the importance of India's regional geographical location, K.M. Panikkar, India's earlier maritime strategist, held that the one who controls the Indian Ocean can rule India. India's maritime security policy also has its role in the India's aspiration of becoming a superpower. India's economy is growing, but to become a superpower, the role of India Ocean cannot be denied. The growing power rivalry in the region play a big role in determining India's ocean policy. Besides growing power rivalry, India's relation with the littoral states and China factor in the region are the key determinants of the Indian ocean policy. India, in order to counter China in the Indian Ocean, has entered into various bilateral and multilateral initiatives. India, in order to make Sri Lanka a close partner, has started various bilateral initiatives. For instance, Joint Working Group in 2004 to resolve fishermen conflict, security of and various multilateral exercises. Besides this, India also participates very actively with all the littoral states through certain regional organizations like Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, BIMSTEC. India also participates very actively with all major powers through bilateral and multilateral naval exercises like Malabar, Milan, and Sagarmala Initiative. India's diplomatic tactics in the Indian Ocean region had underwent a significant transformation. The most significant invention is the arrival of e-diplomacy. India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region. The growing significance of Indian Ocean in the contemporary world order and the strategic location of India in the region creates enormous opportunity as well as challenges for India. India, in order to take advantage of its strategic location in the region, has adopted various diplomatic techniques. The diplomatic techniques range from conducting bilateral and trilateral naval exercise, launching of naval doctrines, conducting annual summits with the countries located in the region, creation of various organizations in the region. The use of internet in conducting foreign policy in the beginning of 21st century has been significant innovation in the foreign policy technique of the India. The arrival of internet not lead to the creation of new diplomatic practice, rather it supplement the traditional diplomatic practice. The core component of India's diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region involves Twitter, FB, YouTube, and Instagram. India held this first summit with Sri Lanka on 26 September 2020. In this summit, PM of India and Sri Lanka discussed several issues ranging from domestic to international and regional, which have concern for both the countries. India also conducted a virtual meeting with Bangladesh on 17 December 2020. In this meeting, PM of both countries participated and discussed important bilateral, regional, and international issues which have mutual concerns. Benefits of e-diplomacy. E-diplomacy overcomes the hurdle of conducting multilateral negotiations simultaneously, as it provides avenues for countries to conduct discussion on various issues effectively without moving a chair. E-diplomacy not only facilitates the interaction between the government representative, but also people to government and people to people. That has really its role in achieving the national policy endeavor. Diplomacy. E-diplomacy overcomes this hurdle of conducting multiple negotiations simultaneously. E-diplomacy has also strengthened the role of foreign diplomats of India in the Indian Ocean region. As through the digital media, they are also able to enhance their relationship to the common masses and the people who are in power there as well. The disadvantage of e-diplomacy. The simultaneous dissemination of information both internally and externally through digital media many times restrict state to implement certain important decisions. India being a large diverse country often faces such issue while implementing its false systems in the Indian Ocean region. The another important drawback which a state might face while making use of e-diplomacy is leakage of important information. The advent of e-diplomacy in conducting foreign policy also lead to the emergence of certain conflict with unidentified sources. E-diplomacy enables accelerated communication, but diplomacy as a tactic for achieving states and national interests sometimes require time to stress upon the issue in order to have desirable result. Cyber threat is another core concern for India's diplomatic practice in the Indian Ocean region. At last conclusion, diplomacy a potent means of conducting foreign relations underwent transformation in India in order to become more effective. The significance of effectiveness of diplomacy is mainly because of its role to achieve the pursuit of national interest. The advent of e-diplomacy not only strengthened the existing diplomatic practice, but also played a tremendous role in achieving achieving the foreign policy pursuits. Changing pattern of world order and India's inclination toward Indo-Pacific creates enormous opportunity for India to realize its aim of becoming superpower in the region. India, in order to take advantage of its strategic location in the Indian Ocean region, adopt a proactive policy toward the Indian Ocean region. India's Indian Ocean policy also reflects the growing demand of the time as well. It also apparent by adopting e-diplomacy in its foreign policy instrument toward the Indian Ocean region. E-diplomacy undoubtedly creates a level playing field for India to conduct its relation with all the major power in the Indian Ocean region besides littoral state, but its adoption also involves certain risks. E-diplomacy though has certain drawbacks, but if it's used skillfully, then it also generates immense benefit for state as well. India's inclination toward e-diplomacy practice in the Indian Ocean region also become apparent through its subsequent adoption of e-diplomatic tactics in the conducting its relation with the littoral state in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. I have multiple number of questions for you, but I think I will reserve the questions for the end of the session.
Okay, ma'am.
So that we can have a vibrant question and answer round with all the panelists. But anyway, you have you have actually talked about a lot of aspects, including India's e-diplomacy in the Indian Ocean region. You have also spoken about how India has been managing its relationships with the island countries in the IOR, which is very important. I think that is something where the Ministry of External Affairs is putting a lot of focus right now in the last few decades. Last few years. We have spoken about IORA, BIMSTEC, and many other organizations. So thank you for your inputs, and we'll have a question answer round with all of you. So please be here. And the third presenter today is Mr. Siddhant. Siddhant will be talking about G20 and its relevance in the post-pandemic world, opportunities and challenges. Siddhant is also a scholar at Amity University, Noida. And Siddhant is also an educator. He is into teacher training and all. So I believe this presentation will be very interesting for us. Siddhant, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, participants and presenters. I'm just sharing my screen.
Try to finish your presentation within 7 to 8 minutes so that we can have enough time for question and answer.
Sure, ma'am. So my topic of presentation is G20 and its relevance in the post-pandemic world, particularly the opportunities and challenges that we face. Beginning with the introduction, as globalization has created several new opportunities for nations globally. Now people can communicate, travel, trade, and build connections across the globe at much faster rate due to the advancement in technology. These opportunities have created numerous serious challenges as well. For example, one of the serious challenges remain the privacy issue that arises out of the use of technology. The spread of virus across the globe brought the world to a halt, and along with it created several consequential effects on the economy and administrative structures. The pandemic brought to light the existing flaws of the international system, as well as created a huge political, social, and economic crisis across the globe. So therefore, it becomes important to analyze the transformation witnessed in diplomacy and the increased significance of regional groupings such as G20, G7. I will be particularly focusing on G20 and the India's image on global platform. The challenges brought by the pandemic require innovative diplomatic solution, which must be properly supported by the administrative framework of the country and must be molded according to the present institutional mechanism. Before moving to the what role will G20 play in the future, first of all, we need to understand its significance and a little bit of its history. It is one of the largest groupings comprising of governments, central bank governors of 20 countries across the globe. The International Forum, which was formed in 1999 to enhance international cooperation and global financial stability. And it has expanded its agenda to include the crucial field areas of environment, technology, governance, economy, etc. This expanding role of G20 in global politics has provided its gargantuan influence to transform the global administrative systems. Accounting for around 80% of the global GDP with around 2/3 of the world population, G20 has emerged as one of the influential international forums. The year 2020 has brought a pandemic for the nations globally, which has transformed the administrative framework and has brought a significant change in international relations. With strict lockdowns in place, the government of most of the nations went digital. Economics overall across the globe collapsed and the world stood still. The birth of digital diplomacy and the accelerated pace of digital communication posed several challenges and opportunities for the field of international relations. A brief history of summits. The first summit of G20 integrated the nations and brought together economies ranging from China to US. The Declaration Summit on Financial Markets in the World Economy stated that the leaders of the group of 20 amid serious challenges to the world economic financial market, but determined to enhance cooperation and work together to restore global growth and achieve needed reforms in the world financial system. So moving forward, remains the agenda of G20 that we first have to enhance the cooperation across the economies. And the first type of global initiative bringing together 20 nations paved the path for innovation, dynamism in the global administrative system. Moving ahead to the next slide. These were some of the major steps that were adopted in 2009 after a period of around 9 years to promote global growth. These steps included restoring confidence in growth and jobs after the 2008 financial crisis, repairing the financial system to restore lending. So these were the basis that how G20 can be used to restore the normal life of people across the globe after the pandemic. So moving forward, the COVID crisis and the political, economic, and social disruptions it has caused are fundamentally changing the traditional context for decision making. The inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems from health and finance to energy and education are more exposed than ever amidst global context of concern for livelihoods, and the planet. The global leaders find themselves at a historic crossroads, managing short-term pressures against medium and long-term uncertainties. This was the quote presented as at the World Economic Forum, and they presented the idea of the Great Reset. The pandemic brought a opportunity to reset the entire global system. The three objectives that were adopted in the virtual meeting of G20 were precisely empowering people, safeguarding the planet, and shaping new frontiers. The challenges faced by the global system has also brought a new model for governance that can be adopted across the globe. The vulnerabilities and the inconsistencies that have been exposed by the pandemic have made the model for world governance imperative in today's scenario. International forums like G20 can provide background support for the nations to cooperate and align strategies for global prosperity. Moving ahead, this was the WTO report on trade measures when the pandemic hit across the globe. The report presented that G20 trade measures analyzed the new trade-related measures that were implemented by G20 member nations during the COVID crisis. While considering both the scenarios for the pandemic, optimistic and pessimistic, both the scenarios considered a high merchandise trade fall that directly led to a shrinkage of global GDP. There were trade-related remedy actions that were taken by nations globally and had the potential of preventing a global collapse. All the G20 economics implemented general economic support measures to support livelihood measures for the citizens of the nation. Further, the G20 economics implemented strict emergency measures to limit the spread of the pandemic. Moving forward, what will be the role of India in the G20? The G20 summit of 2020 was conducted in a virtual environment, which provided a strong boost to growth and integration of digital diplomatic mechanisms across the globe. India, which has remained an IT hub providing services globally, was at the forefront to emerge as a global leader in IT services to the world. The diplomatic negotiations, when shifted to the digital mode, provided some major benefits such as ease of access, utility, and round-the-clock service model to the administrative framework. These benefits have opened new opportunities for bilateral as well as multilateral negotiation for Indian leadership. Now we have to analyze that these benefits have to be reaped in future. And in order to reap these benefits, we need to develop such resources. So digital diplomacy has emerged as a strong force integrating the nations globally, at the same time cutting up several costs for the nations. Numerous regional groupings, especially G20, have received a great push to reorganize and reaffirm the negotiations to improve and integrate the social, political, and cultural relations across the world. So concluding my presentation, the trajectory of the G20 summits, sorry, by mistake, the title has to be conclusion. The trajectory of the G20 summits started in 2008 has only provided new and modern ways to tackle global problems. This has emerged as a crucial institution, and after pandemic will emerge as a global platform which can engage the world and bring back the new normal. So although the COVID crisis has brought several challenges, but there are certain opportunities which have to be harnessed and which can provide a long-term benefits for the global economy and bring prosperity for people across the globe. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddhant. I think your presentation, along with Smriti and Ankit's presentation, all these presentations are telling us one single point, and that is how India focuses on multilateral initiatives, how India puts a lot of trust on multilateral organizations and multilateral mechanisms, and how India's digital diplomacy can actually enhance that. So I think that's one of the key takeaways from this session, and we should work on this area. Having said that, now I would like to invite Ms. Arpita Singh. Her presentation is titled as Arpita, there is some background noise coming from your end. Okay, I think you have to see if you can work on that. Some background noise is coming. Your voice is not very clear.
Hello. Ma'am, am I audible?
You are audible, but there is lot of background noise.
Nothing is happening around, ma'am.
Maybe you can quickly log out and re-log in. Maybe that will help.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Because otherwise we will not be able to hear your presentation properly. So I think when Arpita is trying to fix the noise pollution, we'll move on to the next speaker. And when Arpita joins back, she can have her presentation. So I'm now inviting Ms. Rajshri Roy, and she will be speaking on the BRICS Summit and India's perspective. So Rajshri, if you can please start your presentation.
Yeah, ma'am.
Giving a little bit introduction about Rajshri, she is based in Kolkata. She is an independent researcher working on India's foreign policy for past few years, and she is also an educator. Welcome.
Yeah, ma'am. Many thanks to NIS seminar organizers and Dr. Shampa Kundu ma'am for providing me with an opportunity to speak in this seminar. And my topic is 12th BRICS Moscow Declaration and Indian Perspective. BRICS came into existence in the year 2009 as a multilateral organization for international understanding. And since then, the conferences are taking place formally every year. And the 12th summit was organized and hosted by Russia on 17th November 2020 on the virtual platform due to the pandemic situation, and the theme of the summit was based on comprehensive stability, security, and growth. The main focus or the major imperatives of the discussions were to fight against the worldwide challenges of COVID-19, to counter the bitter border conflicts between Palestine and Israel, military upsurge and terrorist activities in Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. And besides these topics, the biodiversity preservation and national reconstructions were also discussed. Also to support the low-income countries were also mentioned and voiced for in this seminar. This 2020 marks the 75th anniversary of the foundation of UN, as well as the 75th anniversary of the end of Second World War. And on this occasion, all the BRICS members unanimously agreed on reaffirming their obligation towards the world's peace, stability, and prosperity, and also formed resolutions against extremist activities, racism, and xenophobia. The strategies that were formed to combat against COVID-19 pandemic situations were to undertake imperatives for creating opportunities for all, like enabling vaccination program globally, and also restructuring of agricultural and tourism sector, also protecting the global food and nutrition security, navigating balanced economic development and growth globally by providing resources to address urgent balance and payment needs, and also re-establishing international trust, steady business, as well as economic growth. BRICS countries also extended their support towards the peaceful settlement of the military aggression and assaults in Armenia, Azerbaijan region, and maintaining the principle of non-interference into internal affairs, and also reaffirmed commitment towards independence and territorial integrity, and also extended supports to counter terrorist activities in specific regions of the world. The dialogues also laid stress on research in various fields like science, energy and technology, quality, higher education, and enhanced cultural understanding and academic exchange programs among the BRICS nations. India, as a rising world power, has voiced forth the structural modification needs of the global government mechanism, such as United Nations Security Council, World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, and International Monetary Fund, and also expressed disapproval of any kind of attack on the humanity. The Prime Minister also urged the importance of reconstruction of cooperative financial mechanism like new development bank, contingent reserve arrangement and customs cooperation, and also made mention of the importance of self-reliance and resilience. And India's Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan exemplifies Mr. Modi's statement. Alongside, he also commended the role of Indian pharma companies responsible for handling supply flow of vaccine in 2020 for more than in 150 countries. As a partner nation, India affirms its responsibility in stabilizing developmental components and confirmed to carry forward inter-BRICS level partnership in the areas of politics, culture, finance, trade and business, and also validates its standpoints with regard to the issues of global stability, shared security, and innovative growth, which were the theme of the BRICS 12th BRIC Summit, which take place in Russia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashmi. That was a nice effort from your side to tell us about BRICS and how that is important, not only for India's foreign policy, but also for the entire gamut of international politics, because BRICS is, it has quickly emerged as one of the most important cross-continental organization, having its stakes in many important aspects of international relations. You have also spoken about the last summit that was hosted by Russia, but which was conducted on a virtual platform. You have spoken about all the outcomes and objectives of the summit. I would like to ask you one question, Rashmi. And we are hearing a lot about BRICS. In fact, I think few days back, our National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, he hosted the 11th BRICS High Representatives, the summit, the meeting, and this meeting was actually aimed to address the concerns among the responsible people who are looking at the national security issues of the BRICS member countries. That was also a video conference, and if I'm not wrong, that was conducted on 24th August. So if you can throw some light on this particular meeting, because this meeting was also held on virtual platform, which basically means that it was a part of India's digital diplomacy, BRICS digital diplomacy. So where do you see that where India is going with this kind of virtual platforms, Zoom diplomacy sometimes we are calling it. So what is the future of it? And how do you think India can emerge as a leader of digital diplomacy, not only in South Asia or not only for the BRICS countries, but also for the rest of the world? So that is my question for you.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah, thank
Oh.
you, ma'am, for your question. Yeah,
Before that, I just wanted to ask Arpita if she's ready with her presentation, and then we can start with your answer. Arpita, are you able to hear us? I'm not able to hear Arpita. I think there is a message from Arpita that she's not able to unmute. Okay, so I think we'll continue with the question answer round, and Arpita in the meanwhile can try to unmute herself so that her presentation can be done. Yes, Rashmi, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for your question. Yeah, the meeting took place on 24th August on the virtual platform, and it was the 11th meeting of BRICS high representatives who were responsible for national security, and this was chaired by Mr. Ajit Doval, National Security Advisor of India. And in this meeting, all the BRICS members were present, and they exchanged views on political and security issues, and also adopted and recommended. Am I audible now? Yeah. There is some background noise coming.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. In this meeting, a counter-terrorism action plan was recommended for consideration, and they also enhanced cooperation in the areas of cybersecurity, and discussions were also advanced on the areas like combating terrorism, misuse of internet by terrorists, control travel of terrorists, capacity building, and the protection of soft targets. And in this meeting, they also discussed on the Afghanistan scenario right now and the developments in Iraq and Gulf region. And attention was also paid to the heightened risk of growth of illegal drug production, as well as trafficking in this region. So besides that, we also know that India has been elected as a member of the UN Security Council for the term 2021 and 22. And as a rising global power, it's a huge responsibility for India to represent the UN Security Councils throughout the world, and also to put forward the messages that are extended towards the world on part of BRICS. India represented, and India represented BRICS to the world in this way. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you for that answer, Rashmi. The host of the meeting, can you please help Arpita, because she has written a message that only host can unmute me.
Chair Shamba, who you're referring to?
When it's done.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Should I start, ma'am?
Yes, Arpita, please start. So, Arpita, you will be talking about COVID-19, India's foreign policy and e-diplomacy in South Asia. And you have roughly 6 to 7 minutes of time now, because we are running a little late, I guess. So please start and try to wrap it up quickly.
Sure, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sampa Kundu, ma'am, and Nice, for this wonderful opportunity. My topic for presentation is the COVID-19 pandemic and India's foreign policy and e-diplomacy in South Asia. To introduce, India's foreign policy and neighborhood first policy focuses on regional integration and connectivity with its neighbors in South Asia. The two aspects of India's foreign policy, that is neighborhood first policy and act peace policy, play a significant role in molding and strengthening in association with its neighbors. India's relationship with its neighbor has not been really strong enough. Therefore, India's foreign policy prioritizes on maintaining and improving its relations with immediate neighborhood, which is also known as neighborhood first policy. This paper will analyze how virtual platforms are playing a significant role in building relationships between nations in today's world order and during pandemic times. Secondly, understanding the concept of e-diplomacy and exploring India's approach towards SAARC and ASEAN in the field of e-diplomacy. Lastly, reviewing India's approach towards e-diplomacy during COVID-19 pandemic and shaping India's foreign policy. Concept of e-diplomacy. The coming of technological advancement has modified the way diplomacy worked in the earlier times. This COVID-19 crisis has led to the new world order, that is virtual diplomacy, as a new way of negotiation which has often labeled as diplomacy by Edmund Burke. In today's time, e-diplomacy is new pillar of diplomacy. Indian diplomacy has shifted to e-diplomacy. Digital revolution has played significant role that shaped every aspect of individuals' life, incorporating international interests and foreign policies of nations. E-diplomacy as a tool of foreign policy has transformed drastically. E-diplomacy refers to electronic diplomacy and the utilization of technologies, internet, new age communication by different states to build and establish diplomatic relationships and strategies. Indian diplomacy, when digitalized, particularly from 2010, especially driven by the work of Navdeep Puri, India's ambassador. Indian diplomacy has made a switch from physical diplomacy to virtual diplomacy. The benefit of e-diplomacy is that it's real-time reach. Indian Foreign Minister Sri S. Ravi Shankar has done more than 70 virtual diplomatic dialogues with neighboring nations since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. Virtual platforms for diplomacy between nations play a crucial role in today's environment. According to Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Singla, states have to work in close association with each other rather than working as in diplomacy is interlinked with digital diplomacy, which will benefit everyone. COVID-19 pandemic has damaged various aspects of human life. Diplomacy is not left undone. E-diplomacy has become new normal in exchanging dialogue agreements between nations as well as integration of physical and virtual platforms. India has to work in taking full benefit of e-diplomacy during this time of crisis.
Arpita, sorry for the interruption, but if you can just conclude your presentation quickly.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. To conclude, I would like to say that India is using e-diplomacy as a tool to cultivate closer relationships with nations and to boost its global stature. India is becoming strong pandemic situation. Indian government has kept its faith in aggressive employment of e-diplomacy in various forms of communication in order to deal with all nations. The use of e-diplomacy as a statecraft had gained momentum in India. Nowadays, one of the most important tools of foreign policy. While diplomacy between nations is witnessing setback due to absence of physical meetup, e-diplomacy facilitated transfer of communication and dialogues between nations. Diplomacy through face-to-face interaction has its own benefits, but e-diplomacy has its own through saving time, real-time reach, and difficulties in organizing delegation meetings. Although these difficult times will force leaders to adopt the electronic mode of diplomacy over time, and it might prove to be more useful in post-pandemic negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpita. Thank you. Even though there are some disruptions in the sound, but we could understand exactly what you are trying to say. You focused on South Asia and India's e-diplomacy in South Asia in the last 2 years. And you very rightly, you mentioned how India has been achieving a lot by implementing various methods of e-diplomacy in South Asia, even though we all are aware of the traditional and non-traditional security challenges in South Asia. So thank you for your presentation. Since we do not have much time, I would like to invite the audience here. If anybody has any question for any of the panelists, Okay. So I will just wrap up the session very quickly. Basically, from all the discussions that we had today in this session on India's e-diplomacy, there are 3 or 4 points that I could, jot down, which are very important. The first point, as I can see from all the presentations, is how India can emerge as a leader in the field of digital diplomacy. I think that is very important because if India, as I said already, if India wants to become a responsible stakeholder and great power in the Indo-Pacific, India has to have certain leverages, and India needs to, enjoy certain leverages. And I think e-diplomacy or digital diplomacy can be one of those platforms where India actually has a lot of potential to offer to the world. The second point is, use of social media. I mean, Ankit was talking about Twitter, and I think Smriti was also talking about social media. So how we can actually utilize social media for, for creating a positive public image in favor of India, not only in the region, not only in South Asia or Southeast Asia, but also in the rest of the world, because that is also very important. I mean, in today's world, we all understand that how behavior, political psychology can act on international relations and international politics. So perception creation is very important, and for that, Indian policy makers have already been using social media, and they should, focus on that more and more. The third point, again, I have mentioned about it. Most of the speakers were talking about it, and that is multilateralism. So again, multilateralism is something where India has, put a lot of effort to uphold the spirit of multilateralism, and that needs to be continued. The last point that I would like to, talk about is how we can, there are 5 C's actually, and I would like to talk about those 5 C's. The 5 C's include curate, collaborate, create, critique, and competencies. So these are some of the, some of the important aspects, some of the important factors which we need to take into consideration while we are talking about India's foreign policy and India's digital diplomacy. Like one of the panelists in the beginning mentioned that digital diplomacy is an important tool in India's foreign policy. So I think that is very important. If there is any time, then I would like to ask few questions. That depends on the organizers if they are allowing us. Otherwise, I think the next panelists are already here. So if time is not allowing for a question answer round, then we can wrap up the session.
Yeah, Madam Chair, since we are running out of time, I think we have to proceed to the next session.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you to NICE Nepal. Thank you to Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. Thank you to his team and the panelists for your wonderful presentations and the audience for your presence. Thank you.
Distinguished Chair, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of this session, we would like to express a sincere gratitude and thanks to the Chair for agreeing to chair and moderate the session today. Our sincere thanks also goes to all the speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, we must also mention our deep sense of appreciation for the audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live. Thank you for your valuable time and attention and for making this session productive with your questions. Once again, we are truly honored to have you all with us today. Please do join us in the next session. Thank you so much.